you give someone a $50 magnifier, they can magnify things in the world. But if you give them a $100 phone, they can magnify, but they could also go to school, do mobile banking, build up a hustle, watch YouTube, have a date. All of these things matter. And if we can understand if the mobile technologies can be adapted and prove that its value, this is something that will open up this opportunity for NGOs and for governments to provide mobile devices as assistive technology. So Maryam has been leading the research, at least here in Kenya, but she's here to share where we are today. And I'm really excited to see what you have to say.
Thank you, Christopher. Do we have the slides up?
Maybe start the deck, please.
Okay, amazing. I just realized that we didn't describe our physical appearance for the audience who would like to have description. So I am a tiny 5 feet South Asian woman from Pakistan with brown skin. I'm wearing black and white dress with a cream scarf which has cats on it, because I love cats. Okay, so I'll quickly go through my notes, and the slides will go along, hopefully. I think someone will be running the slides at the back. Okay, good. So as Chris mentioned, the overall aim of the project was to understand how smartphones can be used as AT to improve the quality of life of people with hearing and visual impairment, which I will mention as short for HI and VI. This includes social inclusion and citizenship, access to education, healthcare, employment, among other things. Next slide, please. So through the Mobile as AT project, we are training people, VI and HI, in 3 lower and middle income countries, including Brazil, India, and Kenya. As you can see on the screen, there is a map which has 3 pins highlighting the location, well, relative location of the 3 countries. Next slide, please. Okay.
Is there a clicker so we could drive this ourselves? Or next slide, please.
I think it's not showing the text. Anyway, so overall, we have 800 participants, roughly a 50-50 split between people with visual impairments and hearing impairments. And in Kenya, actually the order of the slides is wrong. Anyway, so the project was made possible through the generous funding from ATScale, from Google, and AT 2030 program, which is funded by the UK FCDO through the UK 8 program. Next slide, please. And in the 3 countries, we worked with the partners, quite a few partners. I'll read out the names. In India, we have International Institute of Information Technology, Bangalore, Enable India, Vision Empower, Vinvinaya Foundation, Samarthanam Trust for the Disabled, sorry. And in Kenya, we are working with Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, Kilimanjaro Blind Trust Africa, and Safaricom, and also Census Hub, who have provided the space for the training. And of course, the project is led by UCL and Global Disability Innovation Hub. In Brazil, we're working with the University of Sao Paulo and Claro, which is, again, the telecom partner for Brazil. Next slide, please. So I'll focus on Nairobi because we are in Kenya. We are in Kenya, and I'll focus on Kenya. So some of the findings I will share, and also how we ran the project. So we trained approximately 200 participants, well, exactly 200 participants in Nairobi and surrounding counties of Kisumu, Machakos, Kiambu, and there are a few others, which I'm sure Maxwel will tell you about. And also, last week we were in Diani in Kwale, where we trained around 40 VI and HI participants. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, there is almost a 50-50 split. We had 101 HI participants and 99 VI participants, altogether 200. Next slide, please. In terms of gender, we didn't specifically define a requirement for the gender split when we started the project, but it was one of the things that KBTA were quite conscious of, and eventually we also agreed that there should be a gender split in how we train people. So actually, we managed quite a good gender split. I think we have 49.5% male and 51.5% female participants across both disabilities. Next slide, please. In terms of the disability breakdown for hearing participants, or HI participants, sorry, we had people, 44% of the participants identified as having moderate hearing loss, 20% described as severe, and 36% had profound hearing loss. And in terms of visual impairment, 40% of the people had low vision, 46% were partially blind, and 14% were totally blind. Next slide, please. In terms of education, what I found it quite interesting, actually. So we had several categories: primary level education, secondary, diploma, certificate, degree, master's, and PhD. And there were some instances where participants did not describe their education level, but we are going back to the data and actually collecting that data again so that we have a better understanding. So in hearing participants, we see quite an interesting split here, where almost half of the participants were educated at degree level, and an additional 26% were educated at diploma certificate level, whereas in vision or VI participants, we had over 50% participants who had diploma and certificate, and only 7% that had education at degree level. So we already see where potentially the gap is and where the challenges might be for VI participants. Next slide, please. So in terms of how we run the project approximately runs for 6 months. We start with the baseline assessment of the participants' current or existing digital literacy and understanding of mobile phones. We provide them with digital skills training, which was gladly provided by Google. What we did eventually with that we created a modular design where we found that some of the participants had, they were quite, digital literate or quite competent in using mobile phones. So we removed some of the modules, the physical understanding of the phone, changing SIMs, etc., but trained them on advance. Whereas some of the participants who were very new to mobile phones, for example, last week in Diani, we went through from the basic unboxing, learning how to use the phone, switching it on, changing the SIM, etc., so that when they are able to, when they go home, they're able to do it later on as well. They were quite excited that the phone had 2 SIM. So halfway through the project, we follow up with them on with the survey and interviews to understand how they've been using the phone, what were the challenges, and what were the positive impact. And at month 6, we will do an exit survey, which is going to happen in the next few months, and exit interviews to understand how their overall quality of life, access to education, employment, healthcare, etc., has changed in the 6 months that they have been using the phone. And every month through the project, we provide them with free 2 gigabytes of data, which is again provided by Safaricom. So that has helped the project quite a bit. Next slide, please. So I'll now present some findings from our research. The findings are preliminary at the moment because we are still collecting data, so the final findings may differ a little bit, but it gives us a good snapshot of what we have so far. So next slide, please. So on the screen, it's not great in terms of visibility. So I'll quickly talk through it. So in terms of app use by HI participants, we see, so there are top 10 here, and I cannot actually read them. But
shall I? So
yeah,
WhatsApp with 528.3 thousand uses. Messages, which is SMS messaging, for 140,000 uses. Life, which 77,000. WhatsApp Business with 68,000. Facebook with 53,000. Gallery with 39,000. Women Home Workout, 38,000. Truecaller, 28,000. SIM Toolkit, 27,000. Android System, that fun, so much fun, 27,000.
Yeah, but what we should know in this is that these are number of sessions. So these are the times, number of times the participants have used these apps. So clearly we can see WhatsApp is and we'll see in the VI participants as well, people are heavily using WhatsApp. And one of the reasons is because, as you can see, WhatsApp Business there as well. A lot of the participants they were business owners, so they would communicate or use WhatsApp for business communication, but also for education. And also, we have a WhatsApp community with the participants, so they were communicating with us as well throughout. So what I also find quite interesting here is the Truecaller app, which I had to Google what it was. And it turns out it is a caller ID app. So people use this app to identify who the person is, who's calling them. And again, we see that in VI as well. So if we could see the next slide, please. Chris?
WhatsApp with 129,000 sessions, Messages with 99,000 sessions, Truecaller with 63,000 sessions, SIM Toolkit 28,000, Camera 22,000, YouTube 22,000, Gallery Fit Photos 21,000, GB WhatsApp 21,000, TikTok 19,000, and Chrome 18,000.
Great, thank you. So again, we see here that Truecaller is quite high up for VI participants. It would be great to do further investigation into what is the purpose for them to use, and is that a common practice in the VI community in Kenya to have caller ID and identifying the caller before they attend the call. So can we move on to the next slide, please? So in terms of VI accessibility, I probably wouldn't go through the numbers, but I think I can see the app names. So VI accessibility features of Android, such as TalkBack, Google Assistant, and Lookout app, we train people on all these three. And as you can see, that the top number of sessions for accessibility features is Lookout, and people found it really, really interesting and really useful. And we could almost immediately see the impact of having Lookout, because in one of the training sessions early on in the project, we would usually guide the participants to the toilets, to outside the building, and as soon as we trained people on Lookout, they were like, "Don't hold my hand anymore. I'm gonna navigate myself." And they really enjoyed, just exploring the environment where we were, and exploring the painting on the wall, and the kitchen area and everywhere. It was really, really interesting to see how quickly people were able to gain their independence using Lookout. And again, TalkBack has been really, really a game changer in how they interact with the phone, and Google Assistant as well. I have to say that this data is not entirely accurate, I would say. As I mentioned, that we are still developing the data analysis and everything, so the final data may have some different breakdown. Next slide, please. So for HI accessibility features, we train people the participants on live transcribe and sound notification, which again is an Android accessibility feature. And within this sound services, there's also things like live captions, call captions. Particularly, the participants found call captions really, really useful, because some of them mentioned that sometimes they receive calls from people who don't know them, for example, from the bank or from the hospital or something, and the other person doesn't know that they are hard of hearing or deaf. So the ability through caption call setting really helped them in understanding what the person was saying on the other side, because what a caption calls does is that it shows captions as the person on the other line is speaking. So they were able to read what the person was saying, and also there's a feature to reply within the call, so they were able to use, with limited success, I might say, we are still looking into it, reply to the caller that they can only communicate via video call or through text messages. So one of the reasons, actually, we think that the HI participants, we saw huge numbers, almost 500,000 sessions for WhatsApp, is because a lot of people are doing WhatsApp video calls with each other because they're signing to each other and not doing voice calls. Next slide, please. I won't go through all of the quotes. Maybe we can come back to it at some point, because I don't want to take over the whole session. But the initial findings from the project, so far we found that the participants, our observations are a reduced reliance on carers and sign language interpreters, and increased agency and independence, because again, the participants, they're actively using these accessibility features, which means that they're able to do more things in more places where they otherwise wouldn't have access to a sighted guide or a sign language interpreter. Similarly, a lot of people are starting to use M-Pesa now, or M-Pesa, which means that they're able to do payment transactions, through their M-Pesa app. And it's my third time in Kenya, but since last week, we have taken a lot of taxis and tuk-tuks and everything in Diani, and everything is on M-Pesa. So it's incredible that people are able to use this app now, and through some of the interviews, we also found that they really found it really, really useful to conduct business, to pay their bills, etc. Again, we saw WhatsApp used quite a bit. What was interesting was that a lot of people were using YouTube, and initially we were a bit worried that, oh, everybody's just using YouTube. But from the interviews, again, we found that people were using YouTube to learn new skills. Some people were actually, some of the HI participants were using YouTube to learn sign language even, who were, hard of hearing, but they still could hear a little bit. So again, YouTube as a platform is really interesting for that. So I think I'm gonna stop here and we can maybe
Yes,
later.
this is fascinating content. It is really inspiring to see the impact that these technologies can have on someone's life, empowering them to be independent, learn for themselves, bank for themselves, get a ride for themselves. This is what we're hoping to find. Pascal, what are your thoughts in terms of this and the impact of what this can do?
So thanks, Chris and Maryam. Thank you so much for this great overview of the findings so far. And indeed, it's really, really fascinating. And actually, it's a pity we don't have time to go through the quotes because they're really, really great. And they bring it to life and they really, touch upon the key things. So hopefully those can be made available to everyone here. Like Chris said, I think this is exactly what we were hoping to see from this study and to demonstrate. So it's a great step, and it's not finished yet, but we're well on our way, and that's fantastic. And again, so grateful for the partnership with Google and GDI Hub on this. I guess for me, research, I never like research for the sake of research, and so it's really about, okay, so now what are we going to do with this, right? We are going to end up in a couple of months with some hard evidence around the benefits that smartphones can bring. So what do we do next, right? And there's a lot that needs to be done. But it starts now, right? We're going to have to find a way to raise awareness around this and to share those findings so that they get into the hands of the right decision makers, be it in telco companies or be it policymakers and so forth. We need to make sure that all smartphones going forward that are on the market have the minimum requirements to be able to allow all of these apps to work well, right? And how can we ensure that? We have to really think about the financing of the smartphones to make sure that everybody can access a smartphone if they don't have one, and not just as a donation, but in a way that will be more sustainable and that will also include data plans. Right, not just the smartphone. And last but not least, the digital training, which has been an important part of this program. How do we streamline that? And this goes even beyond this current study, but we were hearing from Google colleagues that are here in this conference, apologies, who most of you here are AT expert users, yet many people in this conference we're not aware of many functionalities that their phones have, right? So there really is a massive need to ramp up that digital literacy for those who need it. So I guess my call would be, as a next step, can we build on the initial partnership that we've had, bring in more players, and I know from your slide that there are already many more players, such as KTB here and others, Safaricom and so forth. But can we come up with a package, a solution that is a win-win-win for everyone, that works for the telco industry, that works for governments, because it will require government interventions and some form of subsidy perhaps and so forth, and that works for people living with disabilities and the AT users. Right, so that triangle and a win-win-win solution that can be sustainable. And I think that would be the next challenge. Last year, we were saying, a year from now, we'll present the findings of the study. I think next year, we need to have now the solution in place to make the smartphones accessible to all those who don't have it, with the package of training and data and so forth in a sustainable way.
Thank you, Pascal. Maxwell, you've been on the ground really driving a lot of this conversation. What are some of the insights that you've learned in terms of the training, in terms of the impact on people? What's been important to you?
Thanks, Chris. I would say that maybe just to pick from where Pascal left, we've observed some digital skill gaps, especially among both the VIA and HI, of course, but then from the observation, for instance, even the most recent training, there was quite a significant gap for the HI. Well, that's too early to sort of like call it out. But then also, we realized that, for example, when you look at some of the apps like Google Assistant and Google Lookout, they're very limited when it comes to language. So if you're visually impaired and you're coming somewhere, you're from the interior part of Kwale County, you do not understand English, even in the Google Assistant, still you're not able to get some help. If you're coming from CIR and all that, it's the same. So I think that's an area that we can look into. But then also looking at how the participants are also reacting and how the use of these accessible smartphones is impacting their lives. For instance, now them being able to easily move around and navigate through their environments, something that they have not been able to experience before. And also just having a bit of privacy and confidentiality in their social life because of the specific features that come with these phones. But now I would say that I would look at it on the other way around. How then do we enforce some of these standards to ensure that now moving forward, the phones that we have in the market are universally designed and accessible for persons with disabilities. I think that's a very key conversation that we'll need to have, and I want to believe that this research is coming at a very good time, because then we have some evidence to use even as we continue to carry on with our advocacy initiatives. Yeah.
Thank you, Maxwell. And I'm glad to hear that there's some complaints. It's not, great job, Google. There's always things that we need to do. This is always a process that we're under. It's never going to be perfect. Language support is absolutely something that needs to be richer and broader. And my hope is with the new generation of AI tools, more languages can come out more quickly. So I'm cautiously optimistic that that's progress already on the way. To your second point about the standards, it's really interesting that there's the Mobile Wireless Foundation has this group called GARI, and they have a lovely list of features for each section of disability. They have recommended features in terms of for people who are low vision, for people who are blind, for people who are deafblind. And we've been taking this guidance from GARI, and we're actually starting to socialize it with different telcos. So we're talking with Safaricom literally tomorrow to see if we can inspire them to take these recommendations and drive change in their product lines. I'm saying this out loud in hopes that we can pressure them to say yes. But we're very early in the conversations, but I'm really optimistic that we can build a great relationship and create and use the legislative landscape that we have with the Kenyan ICT standards, use that to drive change, use these definitions to create a common language. And then people will know that if I buy this phone, if I'm blind, this are the features of what it means. And then when we come up with a relationship with the governments, I also know that I can afford it. And so we're really on the cusp. I think with the next 2 or 3 years, we have a possibility of really transforming the life for people in these markets with this technology. And to that, if AV, it would be possible to put the slide deck up one more time, please. AV, can we put the slide deck up one more time? There's a couple of quotes that we wanted to share that gives you a sense of what we're seeing and why we're so excited. I can keep talking if you like. Okay, so while we're doing this, we have about a couple minutes. So while we put up the slides, are there any questions from the audience? Are there anything that you would like to know about the research, the goals, the opportunities? Okay, then we'll start with some quotes. This is one of the VI participants. What has changed in my interaction with technology and the internet is that I have now gained more speed when it comes to browsing. I'm a YouTube content creator, and now I am able to make quality content, quality videos, and photos for my audience, something that has led to me getting more followers and more fun to my video platforms. So people are starting to get more influence and jobs. Next slide, please. With a smartphone, I think I can now do everything that I would have asked someone to do for me, like sending money, withdrawing, checking balance, calling and texting, going to the supermarket to shop and online shopping. Now I can also share documents, send CVs, and apply for jobs. This is what we're seeing, and this has just been in a couple of months. Just think how much richer this will be the more expert people become with these devices. It gives me a sense of freedom. I'm able to do things independently and freely. When I want privacy and I have an accessible mobile phone, I don't need people to do things for me. With privacy, I have my independence. I think this is a great place to stop. Maryam, what are you seeing, and what are you interested in seeing next?
I would really like, and we're already talking to KBTA, among other things, is to see a long-term impact. Because a lot of questions have come up throughout the research around the continued access to services and also durability of the phones, etc., for the participants. So I would really like to come back after a year or 2 years to see how things have changed for the participants, especially people who are younger. Are they able to now access materials, curriculum, and education at degree level, which we saw that, again, there was a very small number of participants who were able to do it. But I think, as you, Pascal and everyone rightly said, that mobile as assistive technology is not enough. We need accessible content. We need policies. We need, accessibility of resources and education and employment for the people that we have trained, and also other people as well. So I think everything goes in tandem. We need better infrastructure to support independence and empower people. But I think this project is definitely a small step in the right direction.
Maxwell, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, so I think I would say in the next couple of years, I would see how the impact that these phones are creating is changing the narrative to the larger population, and so that they start seeing smart mobile phones as assistive technologies. And then that in overall will also influence government policies in a way, because as we speak now, mobile phones smart mobile phones are not seen as assistive technologies. Once that decision is made, then they can be subjected to exemptions, and that will significantly reduce the cost for these devices for persons with disabilities. Yeah.
Thank you. Pascal?
Couldn't agree more on all those comments. And I guess just to emphasize that, it's not a nice to have, it's a moral imperative, right? It's a right, and everybody should have access to those tools through smartphones. And it's not just about, a right, but it actually is also a smart thing to do, because we know that the whole society, the whole economy will benefit from this, right? So there might be some cost up front, but net, it'll be only positive to individuals, their families, the community, the entire society. So it's a no-brainer for me. We have to get this done.
Yeah. Thank you, Pascal. And as my closing remark, there was one question. Is there a microphone? Front right? In front row?
Hi, my name is Sheila. I think it's not so much a question, but maybe something to investigate. Whenever there's a phone release, I think one of the first features that we all know about the phone is a camera. I think that's because I think a lot is put into the marketing when launching a phone about the spectacle that is the camera and how many megapixels is the front and the back. I say this because, oftentimes with AT, the buyers of AT are not the users, but when it comes to the phone, I think that has been equalized as a device. And I think if we would explore marketing the accessibility features of a phone, the equivalent of what the camera features are, it would also raise awareness in people understanding what you're getting out of the phone in a very commercialized way. But I say this because that is also showing what the market capacity is for any other investors who are coming into it. And that's a gap that I would say maybe I see when it comes to marketing of assistive features. It's never given the spectacle advert. You'll find a video on YouTube telling you what that phone feature is, but it's never a spectacle attractive ad as it is the camera and the storage and that type of stuff. Yeah.
Making accessibility sexy is something that we need to start thinking about how to do. How do you make people recognize the true value and importance of this? And this has a couple of different benefits to this. Last year when we tried to do our first Train the Trainer session, we had a really interesting situation with a phone that we chose without seeing it until the day we got it. It was inaccessible. The manufacturer had added a skin that literally broke every function of the phone. That's not acceptable. So raising the visibility and importance of these technology, of assistive technology is critical. I'm glad to say that this company has actually made the commitment and has fixed all of these issues around accessibility in their skin. So when they're aware of it, people want to do the right thing. Creating a common language, a taxonomy of what does it mean to have a blind-friendly phone or a deaf-friendly phone. The manufacturers know what it means to build, but also the end user knows what they want to buy and whether this phone actually means something for them. So we're in early stages towards this, but I think what you're saying is absolutely correct. But this is something that we all need to do together, raise the value and raise the awareness of these features. Pascal?
Yeah, just wanted to add one other thing. It's a bit related to that, but the price of the phone, right? So that basic phone today that has those features and requirements, if I'm not mistaken, is about $150, $160 or so, right?
Still expensive.
Which is expensive. So again, adding to my previous challenge, can we get that to be at least cut by half, right? And that will go a long way, I think, towards sustainability. And maybe it's a phone that doesn't have all of the latest gimmicks, but that has those minimum requirements to ensure full inclusion and accessibility.
So as in closing, as you can see, this is a process that we're going through. There's no destination because no device is going to be accessible for everyone. But the more we work together to create more accessible phones, the more the platform companies like Google learn about the languages that are necessary. We can add these things into the platform. The more we understand how these things are necessary, the more we can make our applications better. We'll never be perfect, but we're going to continue to do this work. And the research that we've done here is going to have significant impact in the next year or 2 years as we move these things forward. There's a couple more. Do we have any more time? I think the time was a long time out, but if they're not going to kick us out, let's bring the microphone out. There's one up here in the right and one right behind you, sir.
Hello, my name is Abdul Rashid Abdullahi. I come from digital identity background. Thank you very much to the panel for this wonderful conversation you're having out there. Wanted to say that some words that Pascal said, that in the near future we're looking to see where we can find a win-win situation where the government is involved, where the telcos are involved, and where this panel, what it's carrying out forward now, in tune to helping the disabled people to be empowered and have the strength to, integrate with the rest of the society properly. Wanted to say that smartphones at the moment, to be honest with you, can be used in a lot of ways, and I'm looking forward to seeing that era where we can actually make use of all this technology that is out there. My point really to say is that we are producing something where the disabled people can take part in. They can be part of the society and remotely. They can actually access government services, and the telcos are involved in the sense that they will hopefully make these smartphones cheaper. That's the way Pascal is looking at it. And then they can be used to identify themselves remotely and make use of the smartphones we are looking at now to develop. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was more of a statement than a question, I think, but it was an important one. I think there's one more question to the right, and then we'll move up here to the front.
Hi, my name is Sharon. This one is just a suggestion. I would like to ask, as a parent with a special need child, I would like to ask this. Can we have a phone? Because when you look at those apps, there are some apps that have made our children to smile, and they really, those are the other apps that have been making our children to learn more on how to talk, on how to see things, how to see colors and everything. Is there any way that Microsoft can create for us an app or just a phone for our intellectual children, especially the severe ones, those who can't go to school, but they're just at home, but when they see the pictures of cartoon or they see some things or they see the Cocomelon ones, they can laugh and smile about them.
So I'm Christopher from Google, not Microsoft. Microsoft does a great work, so I'm sure they're working on this already. But one nice thing about these open platforms like Android is this: anyone can make an application that has the ability to solve these kinds of problems. You don't need to wait for a Google or a Microsoft or an Apple to build these. Because find the community around you. What applications do they use? What do your friends' friends use? And that's the best way to get a recommendation. But there's nothing of these phones that should prevent it from being used. They have accessibility features built in that should be helpful, but then you look for the application ecosystem that can broaden out the opportunities to educate and to enjoy. There was some questions up here in the front, and we'll just keep going till someone kicks us out, because we've already run over time. Up in the front.
Thank you so much. My name is Senzo Bonambi. I'm from South Africa and from an organization called Lead Change Developments. With regards to smartphones, as a visually impaired person and working with persons with other various forms of disabilities, I just wanted to know from the panel perhaps that isn't it time that we got to a point where we are specific in terms of marketing? And if we are marketing a phone for persons with disabilities, then we use such words so that it resonates with us, persons with disabilities, so that we can go and buy that phone. Because what we see in our countries is that even when we are applying for jobs, it's always a fine print that says persons with disabilities are encouraged to apply. And we always feel as if this is not just for us. So by virtue of that, can we now have a smartphone and for a person with a disability? Because in any case, in perceptions, to manage perception wherever we are in our townships and in our local countries, when someone necessarily sees a person with disability, it's not necessarily associated with smartness. So maybe by virtue of a phone, then that phone can start to help us to change the perception everywhere else of which we are in. And then number two is, with regards to web applications and that we see on these smartphones as well, can we ensure that whatever has been put in there actually abides to the standards of development, which may include, number one, closed captions, closed labels, and so on and so forth. And apart from that, it doesn't have any flashing images, maybe for a person who may be epileptic and may trigger such, and so on and so forth. We just heard now, with regards to someone saying that now they're happy they have a smartphone and they can put out content and so on and so forth. But can it be accessible to a person like myself who's visually impaired and so on and so forth? How are we ensuring that from a tutorial perspective that these types of phones and the smartphone of which we have really cuts across and includes a person like myself? Thank you.
So would you like to take this?
Yeah, I think I would look at it from the point of enforcing and encouraging universal design so that we don't have just smartphones for persons with disabilities, but we have smartphones that support different needs of the customers. So, and that should be done from the point of design. But then again, I would also look at it in terms of enforcing international standards and enforcing these accessibility standards at an international level to the point of enabling recall for devices that are found not to be accessible. Remember the other time, Chris, when we started the project, and then we ended up with phones that were not accessible, and already money was put into that, and then we had to go back and get smartphones. So if there's a mechanism for, let's say, even reporting these kind of phones to be recalled from the market, because then it will be a wake-up call to the manufacturers to ensure that they are able to meet accessibility standards. Yep.
Maryam?
I think I'll probably address the first question around perceptions of people with disabilities, particularly around employment, but also in social inclusion. So we are working with the participants to empower them to tell their story and advocate for themselves and create awareness around them in their communities, in their jobs, in schools, around assistive technology and mobile assistive technology, which means that it gives them independence and empower them to do anything really what they want to do. And we've heard back from some of the participants who've said that they've started advocating on social media and campaigning for access to AT within Kenya, but also globally. So I think I hope that through work like this and of course of the work that all the other organizations are doing, it will create a ripple effect. And alongside, training for employers around accessibility and inclusion will help create that societal change that we need. So, yeah.
Thank you. There was one last question, the fellow in the second row, and because we're running over time. So this will be the last question. And if you have any further questions, please come and see us up on stage.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Teo Kojo. Mine is just an idea. I think Pascal mentioned that the challenge is how do we make mobile phones accessible with a digital training package to persons with disabilities. And I want to say that last year I was in this same room with this same panel led by Chris. And there was the question, and I asked the question that how do we make mobile phones accessible to persons with disabilities? And I mentioned especially SME, PWD SMEs, or business run by persons with disabilities, because it's mobile phones are a tool that actually help businesses to grow, especially the small ones. And as you passed that statement, I was thinking of having a mobile phone, a smartphone bank, especially for the micro businesses, because a phone can be somebody's business capital. So can we have a bank for smartphones where these persons with disabilities can go, given these phones, where they pay as they buy credits onto their phones? Because there's a health provider in Ghana called Ajuoga with mobile with MTN, and you pay 1 cedi every time that, or a month, every time you buy credits, they deduct 1 cedi, and so it's like an insurance package that you contribute into. Can we adopt that business model and ensure that people with disabilities who are running micro businesses can access a phone to be able to grow their business using the phones to market their products and have information about their products and all other things that the phone can give me? This is an idea I'm floating, and I think that we can expand it. Thank you.
Pascal, this sounds up your alley.
Yeah, I think, thank you for that idea, and I think it's exactly those kinds of ideas that we're looking for. We are actually going to be digging into this issue specifically over the next couple of months to try to see, understand, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There may be places where there are already mechanisms in place to make smartphones financially accessible through, monthly payments and this and that. And so that's definitely something that we want to look into. And so let's connect after this. But again, I think, let's do.
So with that, thank you very much. This has been a really exciting project that we're working on. The opportunity going over the next few years is profoundly impactful. Thank you for being part of this, and we'll see you next year. Thank you.